This story is titled, I discovered my girlfriend's betrayal right before our wedding, so I sold everything I bought for the ceremony and sent a hilarious video to her new boyfriend. Hey Reddit, I'm a 28-year-old guy who works as an account manager at a marketing agency. Up until recently, my life was pretty solid and stable. I had a good job, a great relationship, and everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly. That all changed when my fiancée disappeared and didn't answer my calls for days. For a terrifying moment, I genuinely thought I'd find her dead in a ditch somewhere. My mind went to all the worst-case scenarios. Car accidents, kidnapping, something horrible had happened to the woman I was supposed to marry in just over a week. But no, it turns out she just needed some space with her ex-boyfriend. Let me tell you exactly what went down, because this whole situation is still hard for me to believe actually happened. Before I dive into this absolute nightmare, let me set the scene properly. 5 years ago, I met Maya at my buddy's birthday party. She was 27, smart, absolutely gorgeous, and somehow found my terrible jokes hilarious, which should have been my first red flag that something was off with her judgment. We clicked immediately, and what started as casual dating quickly became something serious. Fast forward through all the typical relationship milestones, dating exclusively, moving in together, and eventually the proposal. I thought I absolutely nailed the proposal too. I planned this perfect sunset dinner on the beach, got down on one knee with a custom ring I'd spent months saving for, and she said yes with tears streaming down her face. We started planning our wedding immediately, and for months, everything felt perfect, except for one constant thorn in my side that I should have paid more attention to from the beginning. Her name was Brooke, Maya's college best friend and self-appointed guardian of female empowerment. Picture this woman if you can. She lived in yoga pants 24/7, constantly posting those cringe-worthy inspirational quotes on Instagram about knowing your worth and not settling for less than you deserve. This woman always, and I mean always, had something negative to say about me and our relationship. Brooke would roll her eyes whenever I spoke, like it was literally her full-time job to hate me and everything I represented. She made it clear from day one that she didn't think I was good enough for Maya, and she never missed an opportunity to plant seeds of doubt about our relationship. My older brother Tyler, who's 36 and divorced, never trusted her from the moment they met. The first time Tyler met Brooke was at a family barbecue, and it was absolutely memorable for all the wrong reasons. She immediately started lecturing him about toxic masculinity while he was just trying to grill some steaks for everyone. Tyler, being the straightforward guy he is, just looked her dead in the eyes and said, "The only toxic thing I see is whatever the hell you put in your eyebrows to make them look like two caterpillars having a standoff." Maya was absolutely pissed at Tyler for that comment, but I nearly choked on my beer trying not to laugh. It was the perfect description of Brooke's overly dramatic eyebrow situation, and Tyler had called it out with surgical precision. That moment should have been a wake-up call about the kind of person Brooke really was. But Maya always defended her no matter what. Brooke was perpetually single, which made it even more ironic that she considered herself a relationship expert who needed to protect Maya from making mistakes. Yeah, she was one of those people. Someone who had never maintained a successful long-term relationship, but somehow felt qualified to give advice to everyone else about their love lives. Every guy in our friend group knew exactly what Brooke's deal was. She was the friend who would sabotage any relationship just to keep her friends single and miserable like her. Whenever we'd have group outings or get-togethers, Brooke would somehow find a way to pull Maya aside for these intense whisper sessions. They'd huddle together in corners, speaking in hushed tones while Brooke gestured dramatically, and Maya nodded along with whatever poison she was spreading. Maya would come back from these conversations with this weird, distant look on her face, suddenly questioning plans we'd already made together or bringing up concerns that were clearly planted by Brooke during their little powwow. I called Maya out on this pattern once, pointing out how she always seemed different after talking to Brooke. But she hit me with the classic, "You're just being paranoid" defense. She insisted that Brooke was just looking out for her and that I was imagining things. But it was so obvious what was happening. Brooke was like that one coworker who never actually does anything productive, but somehow ends up on every important email chain, stirring the pot and adding unnecessary drama to everything. Brooke was useless, loud, and constantly trying to add value by creating problems where none existed. Her whole personality was basically just a walking BuzzFeed quiz about red flags in relationships. She'd analyze every little thing I did or said, turning innocent comments into evidence of some deeper character flaw. If I suggested a restaurant for dinner, Brooke would somehow interpret that as me being controlling. If I didn't have an opinion about something, she'd claim I was being passive-aggressive. There was literally no way to win with this woman. I should have seen the warning signs when Brooke started showing up unannounced at our apartment more frequently as our wedding date approached. She'd arrive with these elaborate Pinterest boards of alternative ceremony ideas that always seemed to involve pushing our date back for some reason or another. Or she'd bring over these documentaries about finding yourself before settling down that would leave Maya weirdly quiet and contemplative afterward. Looking back, it's so clear that Brooke was systematically undermining our relationship and planting doubts about marriage in Maya's mind. Our wedding was just a week away, 8 days to be exact. We had spent months planning this thing, going over every single detail until I could recite the timeline in my sleep. That particular evening, I was sitting in my apartment waiting for Maya to show up for our final venue meeting. We had to go over table placements, finalize meal counts, and handle all that boring administrative stuff that suddenly becomes your whole life when you're getting married. 8 o'clock rolled around, and there was no Maya. This was weird, but I figured maybe she got stuck in traffic or had to stay late at work. I should have known something was seriously off when I realized she hadn't sent me her usual Venmo request for her daily, overpriced chai latte. This woman once reminded me that I owed her $2.47 for gas from a subway run we made together. For Maya to go radio silent about money, especially her precious coffee budget, was completely out of character. By 9 o'clock, there was still nothing. I sent multiple texts that went straight to voicemail, which was immediately concerning. Maya's phone was usually glued to her hand, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This girl would text me from the bathroom, from important meetings, even while driving. I know, terrible habit. But the point is that sudden radio silence was absolutely not normal for her. 10 o'clock hit, and that sick feeling started churning in my gut. You know the feeling I'm talking about. Like when you're about to get fired or receive really bad news, and your stomach just drops to the floor. Maya's phone was always within arm's reach, and she'd never, ever missed an important appointment like this without at least sending a quick text to explain. By 11 p.m., I was legitimately freaking out and calling everyone we knew. Her coworkers hadn't seen her since she left work early specifically for our venue appointment. Her gym buddy hadn't heard from her all day. I even called my buddy Marcus, thinking maybe she was planning some kind of surprise with him, but he was just as clueless as I was about her whereabouts. I called her sister Kelly. Nothing. I tried her parents. Nothing. Nobody had heard from Maya, and everyone was starting to get worried along with me. By midnight, I was in full panic mode and drove over to her apartment to check on her. The place was completely dark, and her car was gone from its usual parking spot. I used my emergency key to get inside, thinking maybe she had fallen and couldn't reach her phone, or something equally dramatic and unlikely. The apartment was empty, but everything looked normal. Her bed was made, dishes were done and put away, but I noticed her overnight bag was missing along with some clothes from her closet. That's when the panic really started to set in, because it looked like she had deliberately packed and left somewhere. I filed a missing persons report the next day, but the cop looked at me like I was completely overreacting to a normal situation. "Sir, adults are allowed to go places without telling their partners," he said, with this condescending tone that made me want to scream. I wanted to explain that this wasn't some random disappearance. This was a woman who texted me when she was switching from Instagram to TikTok, who called me on her lunch break every single day without fail, and who was supposed to be marrying me in exactly 8 days. By day 2, her parents started freaking out alongside me. They were calling hospitals, reaching out to friends, even contacting her old college roommates to see if anyone had heard anything. Still nothing. Maya's mom was becoming convinced that she had been kidnapped. And honestly, I was starting to think she might be right. The alternative explanations were all worse than kidnapping in my mind. But there was this tiny, terrible voice in my head whispering something much worse than kidnapping. That maybe she had left voluntarily and just didn't want to face the consequences of her decision. That voice got louder with each passing hour of silence. On day 3, the police finally called with an update. They had found her safe and sound, just chilling at her college friend Brooke's place about 2 hours away. Relief hit me like a freight truck at first. She wasn't hurt, she wasn't dead, she hadn't been kidnapped or worse. But that relief was immediately followed by the cold, devastating realization of what this actually meant. She wasn't kidnapped or hurt or in some kind of accident. She had just left and told absolutely nobody. Not her family, not me, not anyone. She had deliberately chosen to disappear and let everyone who loved her panic and worry while she hung out at Brooke's place. The police told me she was safe and that she needed space. Space. A week before our wedding, she needed space. I tried calling her immediately, but my calls went straight to voicemail. I sent her a text asking what the hell was going on, whether she was okay, and if our wedding was still happening. No response whatsoever. I called Brooke's phone, but there was no answer there either. I even tried emailing Maya, desperate for any kind of communication or explanation. Nothing. It was like she had gone into full witness protection program mode. Except the only crime she had witnessed was her own betrayal of everyone who cared about her. The silence was deafening, and more painful than any argument or confrontation could have been. But that wasn't even the full story, and I was about to discover just how much worse this situation actually was. Later that night, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, this is Jessica, Brooke's roommate. We've met a couple times at Maya's birthday parties. Look, I can't stay silent about this anymore. Maya isn't just taking space, she's with her ex Derek." Then came a picture that felt like a knife being twisted in my chest. It was Maya and Derek looking incredibly cozy on Brooke's couch, with his arm wrapped around her like they were a couple. The timestamp on the photo was from yesterday. My fiancée, who was supposed to marry me in less than a week, was cuddling with her ex-boyfriend while I was filing missing persons reports and canceling our wedding vendors. Derek was the ex-boyfriend she had specifically told me not to worry about when we first started dating. He was the guy she had dated for 8 months in college before he couldn't commit to anything serious. The same dude who had conveniently started liking all of her Instagram posts again right after we got engaged. Something I had noticed but decided not to make a big deal about because I trusted her. Jessica's next text explained even more of the devastating truth. She told Brooke she needed closure with him before the wedding. Brooke's been encouraging it the whole time. "I thought you should know. This isn't right." I stared at that text for what felt like hours, my brain completely unable to process what I was seeing and reading. Closure. A week before our wedding, Maya apparently needed closure with her ex-boyfriend. In Brooke's twisted interpretation, closure apparently meant, "Let me check if my ex is still an option before I settle for you." The manipulation was so calculated and cruel that I could barely wrap my head around it. I called my brother Tyler immediately. He's 36, divorced, and has the emotional sensitivity of a brick wall. But he's always been completely straight with me when I need honest advice. "She's at Brooke's with her ex-boyfriend," I told him, my voice probably shaking. There was complete silence on the line for a moment, then Tyler's voice came through loud and clear. "Well, goddammit, I knew that Brooke chick was bad news from day one. What are you going to do?" After my brain finally unfroze from the shock of this betrayal, I realized I had to make some extremely painful phone calls. I had to start canceling our wedding, and each call felt like getting punched in the face repeatedly by strangers who were taking my money while breaking my heart. The venue cost us a $7,200 deposit that went poof into thin air. The caterer took $4,000 that vanished completely. Our photographer kept $2,500 and told me they were now booked for that day with another couple. Every single vendor cancellation call felt like getting dumped all over again, except these people were billing me before breaking my heart. At least Maya had ghosted me for free. These vendors were charging premium rates for the privilege of destroying my dreams. The honeymoon flights were non-refundable, so there went $2,300 down the drain. The resort booking for our dream Bali getaway that Maya had specifically insisted on was also non-refundable, costing us $800–900. She had pushed hard for that particular resort because it was supposedly her dream destination. And now I realized her dream was apparently to ghost me a week before committing to me for life. Every call, every email, every cancellation confirmation was another nail in the coffin of what was supposed to be our future together. All told, I was looking at approximately $8,500 in total losses, and that was just covering my portion of the expenses. Her parents were supposed to be handling her dress and were going to pay the florist directly, but I had put down the initial booking deposit for everything. Tyler sat on my couch watching me make these calls, and when I hung up from the venue, he just shook his head with that knowing look he gets. "This is why I got married at the courthouse. Cost me $95,000. Divorce still cost $24,000, but at least the wedding was cheap," he said, with his typical dark humor that somehow managed to make everything feel slightly less catastrophic. Then came the even more painful calls to family and friends. I had to tell everyone that the wedding was off, though I didn't mention Derek to anyone at that point. I just said things didn't work out, which felt like the understatement of the century. My mom cried when I told her, and my dad kept asking, "What happened, son?" Like I had any freaking clue how to explain this level of betrayal to someone who'd been married to the same woman for 30 years. My cousin Pete, who had booked a flight from Miami specifically for our wedding, was understandably frustrated. "Dude, are you serious? I just paid $750 for a non-refundable ticket," he said, and I felt terrible about it. My best man Trevor, who had planned this epic bachelor party in Vegas that was supposed to happen that weekend, was equally upset. "What the hell, man? I put down deposits for everything," he told me. And I realized I wasn't the only one losing money because of Maya's decision. The worst call was probably to my grandma Rose, who had been looking forward to seeing me get married before she passed away. She's always been brutally honest about everything, and this situation was no exception. "Matthew, does this mean I need to return the china set I bought you?" I kept the receipt just in case. "I've been married 3 times, so I know how these things go," she said with that matter-of-fact tone that somehow made me laugh despite everything. I texted Jessica back to thank her for telling me the truth about what was really happening. "Honestly, did Maya know you were sending me this information?" I asked her, because I was curious about whether this revelation was going to cause problems for her. She replied quickly, "No way. Brooke would absolutely kill me if she knew. She's been telling Maya that she deserves to explore all her options before settling down. Brooke's been bad-mouthing you for years, constantly convincing Maya that she was rushing into marriage. It's been toxic as hell to watch. So while I was busy picking out wedding cake flavors and finalizing seating charts, my fiancé was being systematically poisoned against me by her toxic best friend and reconnecting with her ex-boyfriend. Cool. Just absolutely fantastic. Then there was the matter of the engagement ring, a 1.8-carat princess cut with vintage-inspired setting that had been her absolute dream ring. It cost me $18,200, which represented months of saving and careful budgeting. I took it to a jeweler and managed to get $11,600 for it, which was less than I had hoped for, but more than I had feared given the circumstances. That money went straight toward offsetting my massive losses, though it barely made a dent in the overall financial devastation. The jeweler was an older guy named Sewell, who gave me this knowing, sympathetic look when I brought the ring in. "Let me guess, she changed her mind?" he asked. When I nodded, he sighed deeply. "Happens more than you'd think, kid. Had a guy in here last week selling a ring he bought 4 years ago. Found out his wife was having an affair with her CrossFit instructor. Life's a bitch, kid." I packed up every single thing of Maya's that was in my apartment. Photos, clothes, that stupid carnival teddy bear I had won for her at a county fair during our 2nd month of dating. Everything went into boxes, carefully labeled and ready for whenever she decided to show her face again and collect her belongings. While going through her stuff, I found one of those ridiculous self-love crystals tucked away in my drawer, the kind that supposedly wards off bad energy and promotes positive vibes. I guess it must have expired before she ran off with her ex-boyfriend, because it clearly wasn't doing its job. I considered taping it to the top of one of her boxes as a little parting gift, but decided against it. I also printed out that picture Jessica had sent me of Maya and Derek cuddling on Brooke's couch and tucked it into the box with our wedding invitations. A little time capsule of betrayal for her to discover when she eventually came to get her things. Tyler helped me pack up her belongings, and he picked up a framed photo of the 2 of us from our last vacation together. He snorted and shook his head. "Look at your face in this picture. That's the face of a man who doesn't know his fiancée is about to pull a Houdini on him. You should have seen it coming when she put that 'Live, Laugh, Love' sign in your bathroom," he said, which actually made me laugh despite everything. While sorting through her things, I discovered a journal she had left behind. I'm not usually the type to snoop through someone's private thoughts, but given the circumstances, I figured all bets were off at this point. Flipping through the pages, I found entries from about 4 months ago where she had written about seeing Derek at a coffee shop by coincidence and how it had stirred up old feelings that she felt she needed to process. There were multiple pages about Brooke encouraging her to explore these emotions before getting married, with detailed conversations about whether she was settling for security instead of true passion. Reading those words felt like being stabbed repeatedly with a dull knife. She had been planning this emotional affair for months. This wasn't some sudden case of cold feet or wedding jitters. This was a calculated decision to test drive her ex-boyfriend before committing to me, and Brooke had been the architect and cheerleader of it all. I added the journal to the box with the rest of her belongings. It served as evidence, not that I needed it for my own peace of mind, since the picture from Jessica was damning enough, but just in case anyone tried to spin this narrative to make me look like the bad guy in this situation. Day 4 of what I had started calling the Ghost Bride saga arrived with still no direct contact from Maya herself. However, her parents started calling me, demanding to know why I was canceling everything without giving their daughter a chance to explain herself. I told them their daughter was at Brooke's house, deliberately ignoring my calls. and had effectively abandoned our wedding. I didn't mention Derek at that point. That wasn't my story to tell. Her father, Robert, actually had the audacity to say, "Young people get cold feet sometimes, Matthew. It's perfectly normal. Maya's always been sensitive. You should be more understanding of her emotional needs." Understanding? I had literally filed a missing persons report because their daughter couldn't be bothered to send a single text before running off with her ex-boyfriend a week before our wedding. But sure, I was apparently the unreasonable one in this situation. 6 days of complete silence passed with absolutely nothing from Maya. Then, the other shoe finally dropped. I was at work in the middle of an important client meeting when my colleague Sandra poked her head into the conference room. "Matthew, sorry to interrupt, but you have a visitor who says it's urgent," she announced with an apologetic expression. I walked out to the reception area, and there she was, Maya, standing in my office lobby looking like she had been crying for an entire week. Her eyes were puffy and red. Her hair was a complete mess, and she had that defeated look of someone who had been put through an emotional blender. "Matthew," she said, her voice thick with tears as she tried to step forward for a hug. I immediately stepped back, maintaining distance between us. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice low and professional since we were in my workplace. Sandra at the reception desk was suddenly very interested in her computer screen, though I could tell she was listening to every word of this conversation that was about to unfold. "We need to talk," Maya whispered, tears starting to well up in her eyes again. "Please, it's all been a horrible mistake. I know I messed up badly, but I need you to understand what happened." "A mistake?" I looked at her with complete disbelief. "Ghosting me and your entire family a week before our wedding to hook up with your ex-boyfriend is a mistake? Forgetting to buy milk is a mistake, Maya. This was a tactical nuclear strike on our relationship and everyone who cared about you." "I know." I freaked out completely. I got scared about the wedding, and Brooke said some things that made me panic. "I didn't know how to face you afterward because I was so ashamed of what I had done," she said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away before she could make contact. "Matthew, I still love you. I want to fix this and make it right between us," she continued, desperation creeping into her voice. "Fix this," I said, the disbelief clear in my tone. "Maya, there's nothing left to fix. It's completely done. I canceled everything. The wedding is off permanently and there's no going back from what you did." Her face crumpled for a moment, then quickly morphed into something harder and more defensive. "You can't do that without consulting me first. That was our wedding. Those were our plans that we made together. Plans that you abandoned when you disappeared without a word," I replied firmly. "I needed space," she said, her voice rising now and drawing more attention from the office staff. "Closure with Derek. You never understood that I needed to resolve things with him. You were always hovering, always wanting to know where I was and what I was doing. So now I was apparently the controlling boyfriend for, let me check my notes here, wondering where my fiancé had vanished to a week before our wedding. The audacity was absolutely breathtaking. And what about Brooke? I asked, watching her reaction carefully. Will she be at the rebooked wedding too? Maya's eyes widened slightly, clearly caught off guard by the question. Brooke was just trying to help me sort through my feelings. She's always looked out for me and wanted what's best for our relationship. Yeah, I bet she has, I said flatly. Your feelings seem to have led you to some very interesting places during your soul-searching journey. She looked confused for a second, then quickly tried to recover. I just needed time to think, to be absolutely sure about everything. You owe me that at least, Matthew, after 6 years together. You owe me the chance to explain what really happened. I don't owe you anything, Maya, I replied firmly. You made your choice when you disappeared. You're being completely unreasonable, she snapped, her mask finally slipping completely. This isn't all about you. I've been under so much pressure with all the wedding planning. You have no idea what it's like trying to deal with all the expectations from everyone. It's not fair to punish me for having a moment of doubt. The translation was crystal clear. Derek wasn't interested in rekindling their relationship, so now I was her backup plan. No thanks. The way she was acting, you'd think she was the one who had been abandoned and betrayed. Like I had somehow wronged her by having the audacity to cancel a wedding after the bride went AWOL for a week. The level of delusion was absolutely staggering. Sandra was no longer even pretending not to listen to our conversation. I could see her eyes getting wider with each heated exchange we had. Tomorrow's office gossip was literally writing itself right in front of her, and I'm sure this would be the most dramatic thing to happen in our workplace all year. Maya, I'm in the middle of an important client meeting. I can't do this right now, I said, trying to end this public spectacle. Of course, she sniffed with renewed attitude. Your work is always more important than our relationship, isn't it? That's always been the problem with you. I nearly laughed out loud at the sheer absurdity of that statement. Our relationship? The one you put on pause while you went for a test drive with your ex-boyfriend? That relationship. Her face went completely pale. What are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. I didn't save it for later, Maya. I know about Derek, I said, watching the color drain from her face entirely. The look on her face was absolutely priceless. Shock, followed immediately by guilt, followed by the desperate mental calculation of someone trying to figure out exactly how much I knew and how she could possibly spin this situation in her favor. That's not what it looks like, she stammered, clearly scrambling for an explanation. Derek and I just talked as friends. Brooke thought it would help give me some perspective on our relationship. Perspective on what exactly? Whether you were settling for me? Whether he was a better option than your fiancé? Did you get your answer, by the way? Because it seems like you're back here now, which suggests Derek wasn't interested in round 2 with you. Tears started streaming down her face again, right on cue like some kind of emotional manipulation playbook. You're being cruel, Matthew. I made a mistake. I was confused and scared, and I didn't know what to do. Can't you show me some compassion here? Maya, I sold the ring. You're wasting both of our time, I said bluntly. That statement stopped her completely in her tracks. Her jaw literally dropped open like in those cartoon movies where the character's mouth falls to the floor. You what? You sold it? How could you do that? As I said, I lost over $1,800 in non-refundable deposits because of your disappearing act. The $11,600 I got from selling the ring barely made a dent in those losses, but it was absolutely necessary to offset some of the financial damage you caused. You sold my ring? Her voice was rising to a level that was definitely drawing attention from other people in the office. That was my ring. My grandmother's setting was the inspiration for that design. How could you possibly do something so heartless? Your ring? I replied incredulously. I bought it for a wedding that you abandoned completely. It was a symbol of a commitment that you completely spat on. And inspiration doesn't make it a family heirloom when I'm the one who paid $1,800 for it. But the money, she sputtered, clearly grasping for any argument she could find. What about all that money? You can't just keep it. It partially covered the venue, caterer, and honeymoon deposits, all consequences of your actions, which still left me massively out of pocket financially, I explained. You have to give me that money back, she demanded, her voice getting more shrill. That money is partly mine since we were getting married. We had shared finances. We're past tense, I emphasized. And no, I don't have to do anything except protect myself from further financial damage caused by your decisions. My boss, Mr. Richardson, walked out of his office at that moment, clearly drawn by Maya's increasingly loud voice, echoing through our reception area. Everything all right here, Matthew? He asked, looking uncomfortable as hell. I'm sure he wasn't expecting to deal with relationship drama in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. Maya actually had the audacity to appeal directly to my boss, like he was going to somehow take her side in this situation. He sold my engagement ring and canceled our wedding without even talking to me first, she wailed dramatically, tears streaming down her face for maximum effect. Mr. Richardson looked extremely uncomfortable, clearly wishing he was anywhere else but in the middle of this personal disaster. I'm sure dealing with workplace drama wasn't exactly what he had planned for his day. Maya, this is completely inappropriate. You need to leave now, I said firmly, trying to keep my voice level and professional despite the circus she was creating in my workplace. But Matthew, what about our families? What about all the deposits my parents paid? You can't just destroy everything we built together, she continued, completely ignoring my request for her to leave. Your parents paid for your dress, which I assume you still have, I replied. They were supposed to pay the florist directly, but they hadn't made that payment when I had to cancel everything. I got stuck with their $700 cancellation fee because I made the initial booking deposit. That added to my already massive losses. I have receipts for everything if anyone wants to see them. You can discuss those charges with your parents. She looked like I had physically slapped her across the face. The ugly crying intensified as the reality of her situation began to sink in. I made a mistake. Don't I deserve some compassion here? Don't I deserve a chance to make this right? I leaned in slightly and lowered my voice, trying to maintain some privacy despite the very public nature of this confrontation. Compassion? Maybe you can explain to me why you needed closure with Derek at Brooke's place. That might help me understand what kind of compassion you think you deserve. You've been spying on me, she hissed, completely ignoring everything else I had said and focusing on that one detail. It was classic deflection. Attack the messenger instead of addressing the message. I didn't need to spy on you, Maya. People talk, and not everyone thinks what you did was okay. Some people actually have consciences, I replied calmly. She switched tactics so fast it gave me emotional whiplash. I've been through trauma, Matthew. Do you have any idea what it's like to have severe anxiety about commitment? I'm suffering here, and you're trying to punish me for having a mental health crisis. Oh, great. Now she was weaponizing mental health issues to justify her behavior. This was absolutely classic manipulation. When all else fails, claim victimhood and make the other person feel guilty for holding you accountable for your actions. This isn't finished, she said, gathering what little dignity she had left after this public meltdown. You'll be hearing from my lawyer about that ring money. This isn't over between us. Oh, it definitely is finished, I replied with finality. In the immortal words of Terminator 2, hasta la vista, baby. Sandra actually snorted behind her computer at that line, which made the whole situation slightly less terrible. Maya stormed out of the office, nearly tripping over a decorative plant in her dramatic exit, looking like a tornado of entitlement and wounded pride. Mr. Richardson, to his credit, just gave me a sympathetic nod and said, "Take the rest of the day if you need it, Matthew." That looked intense. I declined his offer because, honestly, work was actually the one place where I could focus on something other than the absolute dumpster fire my personal life had become. At least at work, things made sense and people behaved rationally. Later that evening, when I told Tyler about Maya's workplace ambush, he nearly fell off his chair laughing. She showed up at your job? That's some Gone Girl level psycho behavior right there. Next thing you know, she'll be writing a memoir called My Escape from Patriarchy: How I Survived a Week at My Friend's House with My Ex-Boyfriend. The audacity is what gets me, I told him. She acts like I'm the villain for canceling a wedding that she abandoned. Like I should have just sat around twiddling my thumbs, waiting for her to decide whether she wanted to be with me or Derek. Women, man, Tyler said, shaking his head with that world-weary expression he gets when discussing relationship disasters. My ex-wife pulled something similar to this. She told me she needed to find herself and went on a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. Came back 4 weeks later with a new tattoo and a Brazilian surfing instructor named Carlos. Said she wanted an open marriage. I told her she could have an open divorce instead. That night, I checked my email to find a message from a lawyer named Gerald, claiming to represent Maya in what he called the matter of unlawfully disposed property, aka the engagement ring. He was demanding that I return the full value of $18,200, not the $11,600 I actually received for it, plus an additional $6,500 in emotional damages. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. I immediately forwarded the email to my cousin Jen, who happens to be a lawyer, with the subject line, "Can you believe this shit?" She called me back 15 minutes later, laughing so hard she could barely speak coherently. "Is this for real?" she gasped between fits of laughter. "She's trying to sue you for selling an engagement ring after she ghosted you before the wedding? And she wants emotional damages on top of that? What's her legal claim here? That you deprived her of the opportunity to pawn it herself. Apparently it has sentimental value," I said, mimicking Maya's whiny voice from our office confrontation. "Yeah, well, sentimentality doesn't hold up in court," Jen said, still chuckling. "Engagement rings are conditional gifts contingent upon marriage happening. No marriage, no entitlement to the ring. That's basic contract law. I'll draft a response that'll make this Pinkman guy crawl back under his ambulance-chasing rock where he belongs." That same night, Maya's mom called. Let's call her Karen, and you'll understand why in just a moment. Karen has always been primarily concerned with appearances above all else. Polite on the surface, but judgmental as hell underneath. She's the type of woman who would smile sweetly while insulting your entire existence. She once asked me if I was comfortable in my limited career, or if I had greater aspirations for my future. Classic Karen behavior. "Matthew," she began, with that fake sweetness dripping from her voice like poisoned honey. "Maya is beside herself with grief and completely distraught about this whole situation." "I can imagine," I replied dryly. Screaming in someone's workplace tends to be emotionally exhausting. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "Now you listen here, young man. I will not tolerate that tone from you. My daughter is the injured party in all of this mess. How dare you speak about her that way?" The level of delusion was absolutely rich. "She made a mistake, yes, but your response has been completely disproportionate to the situation. Selling her ring, canceling everything without consulting anyone. Do you have any idea how this makes our family look to everyone in our social circle?" And there it was, the real concern. Not about her daughter's behavior or the pain she had caused, but about how this whole situation made their family look to their friends and neighbors. She had the audacity to suggest that Maya's amends should involve me reinstating the wedding and returning the ring money to make everything right again. When I called this idea completely delusional, she quickly pivoted to making sentimental value arguments about the ring design, a design that Maya had literally picked from a catalog at the jewelry store. Karen reminded me that they had paid for Maya's dress and had given us $200 toward the honeymoon expenses. I calmly explained that their honeymoon money had gone directly to the non-refundable Bali resort that Maya had specifically insisted on booking. I had receipts and bank statements to prove exactly where every dollar had been spent. "It was completely improper for you to have kept that money," she declared indignantly. "I'll be speaking to our attorney about this situation immediately." God. They were all suddenly lawyer-happy, like threatening legal action was going to magically undo the consequences of Maya's choices. When I brought up the florist cancellation fee that I had been forced to cover when they defaulted on their portion of the payment, Karen absolutely exploded. "That's outrageous. You're trying to extort money from us. I want to speak to your parents about this immediately. They need to know what kind of son they raised and how you're treating our family." Her defense of Maya's behavior reached peak absurdity when she claimed that Maya had just gotten scared like any normal young woman would. "Young girls do these things sometimes, Matthew. It's perfectly normal behavior. I myself had doubts before marrying Robert. These feelings are completely natural. She's 27 years old, Karen, not 19, and decent people don't disappear for a week before their wedding without telling anyone," I replied firmly. I was tempted to mention Derek and Brooke's involvement but held back. If Maya hadn't told her parents about that particular detail, I wasn't going to be the one to drop that nuclear bomb. Let her deal with her own mess. The conversation continued with Karen displaying absolutely astounding levels of entitlement. She genuinely believed that because Maya was supposedly sorry, a meaningful apology I still hadn't actually heard, all financial burdens should either vanish into thin air or become my responsibility to absorb. She even had the nerve to suggest that I should apologize to Maya for selling her ring. "You need to do the right thing here, Matthew. Maya is willing to forgive you if you apologize sincerely and replace the ring. She's being very generous considering how much you've embarrassed her publicly." I was seriously tempted to say, "You know what, Karen? I'll give her the ring money back when she pays me for the trust issues I'll have for the rest of my life." But I managed to keep the conversation professional and restrained. Tyler's response when I told him about Karen's phone call was priceless. "Wait, let me get this straight. Her daughter disappears for a week before your wedding, hooks up with her ex-boyfriend, then comes crying back when he doesn't want her, and you're supposed to apologize. What's next? Are you going to write her a thank you note for destroying your life? These people live in a completely different reality, bro." Honestly, Tyler should start a podcast where he just roasts relationship disasters and terrible in-laws. He could call it "No Ring, No Refund," and I'd subscribe twice. Karen's call was just the beginning of what would become a coordinated family harassment campaign. The next day, Maya's dad Robert hit me with an email that somehow managed to be even more condescending than his wife's phone call. He went full man-to-man mode, claiming that we needed to resolve this situation like gentlemen and find a mature solution. According to Robert's twisted logic, Maya was just overwhelmed by wedding planning stress, and I should be understanding of what he called a momentary lapse in judgment. The nerve of this guy suggesting that I should forgive what he characterized as a minor mistake absolutely blew my mind. Momentary? She had ghosted everyone for over a week. These people were clearly living in some parallel universe where disappearing before your wedding was just a quirky personality trait that required a little patience and understanding. I kept my response to Robert short and professional, a single line promising him a comprehensive breakdown of all wedding-related expenses so he could see exactly where every dollar had gone and who was responsible for what costs. Then, Maya's sister Kelly called, and thankfully, she turned out to be the one reasonable person in that entire family. "Matt, I'm so sorry about all of this. I know Maya messed up big time, and I can't believe how Mom and Dad are acting about it." "Thanks, Kelly. That means a lot to hear from someone in your family," I replied, genuinely relieved to talk to someone with their head screwed on straight. For what it's worth, I don't think she deserves another chance after what she did. Who does something like that to someone they supposedly love? And a week before the wedding? It's absolutely insane behavior. At least someone in that family understood the gravity of what Maya had done and wasn't trying to minimize or excuse her actions. However, Maya's parents continued their harassment campaign, so I decided to send one final clear message to Karen. I'm sending you, Robert and Maya, an itemized list of all wedding-related expenses that I managed or was left responsible for. It will clearly show who these costs were originally supposed to be covered by and who caused each financial loss. It will demonstrate that no one is profiting from this situation, least of all me. The spreadsheet will also clearly state the $1,700 florist bill that I covered on your behalf when you failed to make your payment. You can reimburse me for that or not, your choice entirely. But any further demands or threats will result in a cease and desist letter from my attorney. Karen's response was immediate and predictably threatening. You wouldn't dare take legal action. Do you know who Robert's golf buddies are? We have connections in this town that you can't even imagine. Classic Karen behavior. When logic fails, resort to vague threats and name-dropping. Try me, I said, and hung up the phone. It wasn't a pleasant conversation, but my rage was clean and focused. They thought they could bully me into paying for Maya's enormous mistake, but they were about to learn otherwise. The next day, I did exactly what I had promised. I created a meticulous spreadsheet documenting every single vendor, every deposit, all the dates, and scanned receipts for everything. I highlighted the florist cancellation fee that I had been forced to cover when they defaulted on their payment obligations. I attached proof of the ring sale and showed exactly how that money had only partially offset my massive losses. I debated whether to include the photo that Jessica had sent me of Maya and Derek cuddling on Brooke's couch. In the end, I decided against it. My goal wasn't to launch nuclear warfare against Maya's family. I just wanted to establish clear boundaries and present the facts. But I did save that photo in case things escalated further and I needed additional evidence. I made 3 copies of the comprehensive documentation and sent them via registered mail with return receipt requested. One for Maya, one for her parents. Tyler looked over the spreadsheet before I sent it out, and his reaction was perfect. Damn, bro, this is the most beautiful screw you I've ever seen in my life. It's like poetry, but with numbers. It brings a tear to my eye, he said, with genuine admiration for the thoroughness of my documentation. Then I decided to reach out to Jessica again to see how things were going on her end. Hey, just wanted to say thanks again for being honest with me about what was really happening. Has there been any fallout on your end from all of this? She replied quickly with some very interesting updates. Brooke's been acting sketchy because she knows someone told you something. Maya moved out yesterday after having a huge fight with Brooke. Apparently, Derek made it crystal clear that he was just having fun and wasn't interested in getting back together seriously. Brooke told Maya she deserved better than both of you guys. The whole situation is toxic as hell. The irony was absolutely perfect. Brooke had systematically blown up Maya's life just to prove some twisted feminist point about not settling, then immediately kicked her out the moment things got inconvenient and messy. It was loyalty sponsored by TikTok therapy sessions and $15 iced lattes. So Maya wasn't even staying with Brooke anymore. After her dramatic office stunt, the falling out with Brooke, and Derek's rejection, she was back living with her parents like a teenager who had screwed up badly. My spreadsheet would be landing right in the middle of that family reunion, which was perfect timing. The next day, I was working a long shift at a construction site, and I didn't get home until around 8 p.m. Immediately, something felt off about my apartment. The air smelled different, like Maya's distinctive perfume was lingering in the space. Maya had definitely been there while I was gone. I had texted her earlier that she could pick up her belongings from the boxes I had packed in the living room while I was at work. I told her to just grab her stuff and go, and that I'd leave the door unlocked between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. to make it convenient for her. Apparently, she had decided to wait until later than that window. I walked into my home office and immediately froze in absolute shock. My custom gaming PC, the one I had built myself and spent thousands of dollars on, the machine that had gotten me through college and countless late nights, was completely destroyed. The tower was lying on the floor with the side panel completely bashed in and components scattered everywhere like a technological crime scene. Someone had clearly taken a hammer or baseball bat to it with serious intent to destroy. Water from the cooling system was pooled on the floor around the wreckage, creating an even bigger mess. My hands were literally shaking as I picked up a piece of what used to be my graphics card. It was a $500 RTX card that I had saved for months to buy, and now it was snapped completely in half like a broken toy. There was a note stuck to my monitor that read simply, "Now we're even. M. Even?" I was seeing red, but I forced myself to think strategically before reacting emotionally. I called my neighbor Jeff, who has one of those Ring doorbells that faces toward my apartment building. "Jeff, any chance your doorbell camera caught anyone coming to my place today? I think someone broke into my apartment." Yeah, actually, your girlfriend stopped by around 6:30, he replied. Thought that was kind of odd since, ex-fiancé and all that. Yeah, it is definitely odd. Any chance you could send me that footage? I asked, already knowing this was going to be exactly what I needed. Sure thing, man. Give me a few minutes to pull it up. The footage was absolutely perfect evidence. It showed Maya clear as day, walking into my apartment at 6:42 p.m., carrying what looked unmistakably like a small sledgehammer. What the hell was she thinking? She left my place at 6:58 p.m. looking completely smug, like she had just dropped the hottest diss track of the year. She strutted out of there like Kanye storming out of an interview. Meanwhile, I'm standing over the remains of my graphics card like it's a war crime scene. I took detailed photos of everything: the damage, the vindictive note, close-ups of all the broken components that were scattered across my office floor. Then I texted Maya directly. Why the fuck did you destroy my PC? 3 dots appeared immediately on my phone screen. She had clearly been waiting for this confrontation. I don't know what you're talking about, she replied, which was laughably transparent. Really? So that wasn't you entering my apartment with a hammer at 6:42 p.m. today? I responded, already having the evidence ready. There was silence for about a minute. Then her true colors came out. You deserved it after what you did to me. Gotcha. I immediately took a screenshot of that confession. What exactly did I do to deserve $3,500 worth of property damage? I asked. You humiliated me publicly. You destroyed our future together. And you sold my ring without any consideration for my feelings, she replied, listing her grievances like they justified criminal destruction of property. And that justifies criminal destruction of my property? Great. Thanks for the written confession. The police will be very interested in that text, along with my neighbor's security footage showing you entering with a weapon. You wouldn't dare call the police. It would be your word against mine, she replied, clearly not understanding how evidence works. I sent her the screenshot of her own confession where she admitted to destroying my PC because I deserved it. It's not your word against mine when you just admitted to it in writing, Maya. Plus, I have video footage of you entering my apartment with a weapon. You're not exactly covering your tracks well here. I filed a police report about the destroyed PC and had to go through small claims court to get the money for the damages. But with the evidence I had collected, the security footage, her written confession, and the photos of the destruction, it was pretty straightforward. Maya tried to fight it by claiming that I had emotionally damaged her and that her actions were justified, but the judge wasn't buying any of her victim narrative. The court ordered her to pay $3,200 for the PC replacement plus court costs, which felt like a small victory in the midst of all this chaos. It's been a few months now, and life just keeps moving forward. After I sent that financial truth bomb spreadsheet and won the small claims case, things finally settled into blessed, golden silence. No more manipulative calls from Karen, no more tearful workplace ambushes from Maya. The peace and quiet has been absolutely wonderful. I never did get the $1,700 back for the florist cancellation fee that I had covered on their behalf. I knew I wouldn't. Prying money from self-righteous Karen would be like trying to baptize a cat. But the principle had been asserted, and my spreadsheet had detailed my complete financial burden, including covering their lapses in payment. Maya did pay the $3,200 for my destroyed PC, though the court gave her 45 days to come up with the money. On day 43, a check arrived in my mailbox with no note attached, just the exact amount that was ordered. Small victories, but I'll take them. What I did get was this absolute gem of an update from Kelly about a month ago. You are not going to believe this. Or maybe you will given how you know my family. Maya tried to get mom and dad to pay for a healing retreat to help her process the trauma from the wedding cancellation and what she called legal persecution from you. The retreat cost $3,800. Dad actually said no flat out and told her that her healing could start with getting a job and paying back the deposits they lost on her dress and alterations. Mom's been giving Dad the silent treatment ever since, and Maya's been having a complete hysterical circus about it. That piece of information was better than any $1,700 I could have recovered. The entitlement finally hitting the family brick wall, and Robert actually finding his voice to say no to his daughter's ridiculous demands. That was priceless. Kelly dropped another bomb during that conversation. By the way, Jessica sent that picture of Maya and Derek to Mom because she said she couldn't stand the lies anymore. Mom confronted Maya about it, and apparently it was absolutely apocalyptic. Maya tried to say it was completely innocent, just closure, but Mom wasn't buying it at all. Dad actually packed a bag and went to stay with my uncle for 4 days. It's the first time I've ever seen him walk out on the family like that. Tyler and I were playing Call of Duty on my new PC, upgraded thanks to Maya's court-ordered payment, when I told him about the healing retreat demand. He nearly choked on his drink laughing. A healing retreat for what? Terminal entitlement? Advanced narcissism? I swear these people think reality is completely optional. What's next? A GoFundMe for her emotional support unicorn? My life is genuinely good now. I sold our old couch and bought a new one just for me, completely reclaiming my space and making it mine again. I've been going to the gym regularly. Work is solid and fulfilling, and I'm finally feeling like myself again. Mr. Richardson even gave me a promotion after seeing how professionally I handled the Maya situation at the office, which was an unexpected silver lining. As for dating, hell no, not anytime soon. My brother's advice on that front has been perfect. Take your time, bro. You just dodged a bullet that would have made Neo from the Matrix proud. Enjoy the freedom and figure out what you really want. Maya faced the full consequences of her choices, and honestly, that feels like justice. As my dad always says, the best revenge is living well, and that's exactly what I'm doing. She made her bed with her terrible decisions, and now she's lying in it while living with her parents and dealing with their complaints about her behavior. Meanwhile, I'm sleeping just fine in my completely drama-free apartment, playing Elden Ring on my upgraded PC that Maya involuntarily helped finance through her destruction of property. There are no random sobbing sessions, no "can we talk?" texts arriving at 3 a.m., and no more stepping on random hair clips in the bathroom. It's just me, my controller, a well-stocked fridge, and the satisfying hum of a high-end GPU that didn't cheat on me. As the great poet Ice Cube once said, "Today was a good day." And honestly, most of my days have been pretty good lately. I've learned some valuable lessons about red flags, toxic friends, and the importance of trusting your instincts when something feels off in a relationship. Looking back, there were warning signs I should have paid more attention to. Brooke's constant negativity and manipulation, Maya's tendency to get confused after talking to her, and the way she always defended Brooke no matter how inappropriate her behavior was. I ignored those red flags because I loved Maya and wanted to believe the best about our relationship. But now I know better. I know what genuine love and respect look like, and I know what manipulation and betrayal feel like. Maya's actions taught me more about my own worth and boundaries than years of relationship advice ever could have. She showed me exactly what I don't want in a partner, and for that clarity, I'm actually grateful. The whole experience was devastating at the time, but it ultimately saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Imagine if she had waited until after we were married to pull this stunt, or if we had kids together. The financial and emotional damage would have been exponentially worse. Instead, I got a relatively clean break, learned some hard truths about people I thought I knew, and came out stronger on the other side. Tyler was right. I dodged a bullet, and now I'm free to build the life I actually want instead of the life Maya was pretending she wanted with me. So that's my story. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. Maya thought she was punishing me by leaving, but she actually set me free. And for that, despite everything she put me through, I'm genuinely thankful.